Just a little comment on that song we just sang. One of the words in that song was, speaking to God, you are everything. Genesis 1, it says, and God said, and God created everything. God really is everything. And I won't get into quantum mechanics and quantum physics, but that's true from a quantum physics and quantum mechanics that we're just discovering today too. God really is everything. And we could go on that for quite a while. But these latest revelations about quantum physics and quantum mechanics are verifying the Bible in a real way. If you take out your Valentine's Day and the cross worship message today, I've never heard a worship message talking about Valentine's Day, so I thought I'd create one. In the United States, approximately 200 million Valentine's Day cards are sent each year. This does not include the hundreds of millions of cards school children exchange. I don't know about you, but in grade school, we exchanged Valentine's Day cards. And, I think it's important that we make fun of themselves, so I'm going to make fun of myself right now. In 5th grade, I had a crush on Susan McCoy. Short, little, absolutely darling crush. And I was at a store and I got a handful of those cheap Valentine's Day cards. And I took a pen and every single one of them I said, much love, much love, much love. And then she lived about 6 or 7 blocks away from me. So I waited till the sun went down. Then I never told my folks or anything about this. My folks died not knowing this story. And I crammed all those Valentine's Day cards. There had to be 6 to 10 of them in her mailbox, and rode quietly away. And there was a guy in my grade school class, the same class I was in, that had a crush on her too, but he was real open about it, that he had a crush on Susan. And I got to school the next day, and Susan looked at him and she said, Marvin, I know what you did last night. Well, Marvin looked so guilty that it obviously had to be Marvin, She didn't have any idea it was me. And it was all I could do to keep from bursting out laughing, And poor Marvin got blamed for something I did. And do you remember your first crush in school? My mom had a crush on this guy in grade school, and he gave her a Valentine. And she was so excited that she could hardly wait to open up. And remember, this is Wyoming now, so it's sort of a Wyoming Valentine's Day. And she was so disappointed when she read what he wrote. A cow, a horse, this goes to Phyllis Norse. Where was his brain? He was a farm boy. I guess he thought maybe that was a good thing, a cow and a horse. This goes to Phyllis Norse? I don't think so. But in the United States, we always can figure out a way to make a lot of money, right? And Valentine's Day is a major source of commerce with over $20 billion spent just on Valentine's and Valentine's Day gift alone. And I spent a lot of money on a nice dinner the other night, but nowhere near this amount, And I gave an early Valentine's Day dinner. But there really was a St. Valentine. And Valentine was a wonderful Christian leader in Rome, and you were not considered a loyal Roman citizen if you didn't offer sacrifices in the Roman temples to the genius or the godness of Caesar, the Roman Emperor Caesar. And several times the Roman magistrate met with Valentine. He said, listen, this is just a simple little thing you got to do. I don't want to execute you, but you need to go to the temple. This is not a big deal. Offer an offering to the godlikeness of Caesar, and I don't want to kill you. And Valentine would explain Christianity, that Jesus was the Son of the living God, and he couldn't do that. He would be denying Jesus. And the Roman emperor he said, no, you won't be denying Jesus. This is just to show you're a Roman citizen. And Valentine basically said, my Caesar is Jesus of Nazareth. My God is Jesus. I can't do that. All the people in that part of Italy knew that Valentine was a great Christian. Even the non-Christians knew that. And basically the Roman governor, he said, I've got to follow Roman law, and I'm going to have to execute you, and I don't want to do it because you're a good person. But he executed him. This is about 297 years after Jesus rose from the dead. So ever since that time, Christians have celebrated St. Valentine and how he loved God and how he loved other Christian people. And so the focus on Valentine's Day in the United States is on human love. And it's okay to celebrate Valentine's Day. It's all right. Sort of like I feel about Halloween. It's okay to celebrate Halloween. It really has nothing to do with Christianity, Valentine's Day, but it's about human love. And the cross really shows eternal love. And this started right with the ancient Hebrew people. And God very gently, throughout all the great prophets and the great Jewish leaders, gradually began to show them that God is love. And the cross really is sort of the final stamp of God's eternal love. But it all started with the children of Israel. And you remember a Sunday or two ago I mentioned how King David really understood God's love. And he wrote the first 50 Psalms. But also the prophet Isaiah, oh my goodness, some of the things in the prophet Isaiah, God is tremendously loving. And then Jesus pointed out to his disciples, the most important prophet in all of Jewish history was John the Baptist. John the Baptist prepared the way for Jesus of Nazareth to really show what love was all about. And John was willing to die for his testimony, and he was beheaded by King Herod. And one of the things we were talking about in a Sunday school class today is all the 12 disciples saw John the Baptist get beheaded. And then 11 of the 12 disciples, they died for Jesus too, for God's love. So, following God is more important than anything else. It's even more important than life itself. A friend of mine, he was just a little boy when he went into central, I'm trying to think of the name of the country, it's just north of Australia, New Guinea. They were the first non-New Guinea people that flew into and evangelized central New Guinea. they put their lives on the line because these people were cannibals. And his name is Bernie Van Stone. And he learned, when you're 7 years old, you can learn other languages real quickly. He soon became his parents' translator because he was playing with all these New Guinea kids, and he learned the New Guinea language. So when Bernie speaks today, I can tell he's thinking in the New Guinea language, and then he's translating it in his mind to English. And so a friend of mine, he married a young lady from Guam, and they came over for dinner one time, and I said, "Are you thinking in Guamanian and then translating it into English?" And she said, yeah, that's what I'm doing. And so the tremendous love of these missionaries, putting their lives on the line, and as a 7-year-old boy, Bernie putting his life on the line, and he was so happy the other day. He said, my playmate, after a few years, he accepted Jesus as his personal Savior. So, following God is more important than anything in life, including life itself. And we were talking today, too, that people in China are dying for their faith in God right now. People in extreme Islamic countries, and a couple mentioned Bangladesh and northwest India, they're dying for Christ every day, like Valentine, like St. Valentine. And I mentioned this a few months ago, but I'll never forget the picture I saw in the newspaper. Here were all these young men, Christians, kneeling in jail suits by the Mediterranean Ocean. Here were all these Islamic men standing behind them with big swords. All they had to do is say, there is one God, and his name is Allah, and Muhammad is his prophet, and they would have been set free. But none of those young men, those African and Arabic young men, none of them did that. They were all beheaded. This happened like 5 years ago. This is not ancient history. And Valentine was just a wonderful Christian man. So Valentine's Day, it's okay to give Valentine's cards to people or take people out and celebrate Valentine's Day. But it's important to remember that's human love. And it's much more important that we sell our souls to God and be willing to even die for God. Valentine is a wonderful example. John the Baptist is a wonderful example. 11 of the 12 apostles gave their lives for Jesus. Only John lived out his whole life, and most Christian historians think John lived to be in his 80s, which then was almost like living into your hundreds because they didn't have modern medicine. But I want to tell a local story. I mentioned this a few years ago here in this church, but I want to tell a local story. The highway from Holton to Netawaka is called Danny Peterson Highway. And if you'll notice, every year they'll put flags on both sides of the sign as you drive up Highway 75 to Netawaka from Holton. And the reason it's named Danny Peterson Highway is Danny Peterson, his military unit in Vietnam was attacked by the Viet Cong with an overwhelming force. And he was in an armored personnel carrier, and there was a really seriously injured soldier. Danny carried him out of the battle zone way back to where he'd be safe and the Army medics could help him. And then he ran back to his armored personnel carrier, that had a 50 caliber machine gun on the top. And he told all the American soldiers, "Get out of here, I'm going to protect you. Get out of here, run away from them, I'm going to stay here and hold them off." And alone with a 50 caliber machine gun, he held the Viet Cong away from the American soldiers. And they were able to get to safety. And about the time they were all safe, he was standing up on top with a 50 caliber machine gun. He turned his armored personnel carrier sideways to block them. And he died up there saving their lives. There are still men today in Jackson and Brown County that were in his unit that remember the courage of Danny Peterson. And sometimes when I'm feeling a little sad and depressed, I go to the Netawaka Cemetery. And I go by Danny's tombstone. And I thank God that there are people like him in the world. And even more so, you and I can stand by the 12 disciples who died. St. Valentines, who died for Jesus. And Danny held off the enemy until everyone was safe. And Jesus holds off sin in our lives so we don't go eternally to death or eternally to hell. And so each one of us can be eternally safe. And so the cross is the deepest love there can possibly be. Following Jesus is a foundational thing in every life. And you know, we really can't fully live until we fully follow God. Now, none of us follow God perfectly. But following God is all about growth. It's all about growth every day and fighting the darkness within us and constantly rededicating our lives every single day. One of the things I always tell new Christians is start reading Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Read them slowly. Underline where God speaks to you in the Bible. Get to know Jesus. If you read those 4 Gospels, you will get to know Jesus so well that no matter what happens in your life, you will know what Jesus would do in that situation. One of the greatest books ever written was right in Topeka, Kansas. And the question that book always asked was, what would Jesus do? And so I would say, make Jesus the main love of your life. Every other love is human. Become so familiar with Jesus. Because the cross is the deepest love. And again, Valentine's Day is okay to celebrate. If you want to be a sneaky little guy, do it at night in a mailbox. But human love is wonderful. But knowing that you're a daughter of God, a son of God, and that Jesus died for you personally, that's the greatest joy. Amen.